Welcome to Indie Meme, sir, and good morning to you.
Good
Thank you
morning.
for joining us. Animon and I would like to kick this off, and then we'll invite our audience members to ask questions. My first question to you is, since we just saw this beautiful restored film, when you saw it again, when it was restored last year, was it after the time when it was released the first time? So was it like a blast from the past, or were you in touch with the film?
Not really. In fact, I didn't know that it was being so lovingly restored. And though I had seen it a few times, I'm not in the habit of watching a lot of my old work. It makes me feel very old. Uh, but Manthan is one of my favorite films in many ways and for many reasons. Um, it was the first film it was my second film, in fact. My first film was, as an actor, was Nishant, also by Shyam. And like Ankur, Nishant was also a success, um, as much acclaimed as Ankur. And it did pretty decent business at the box office. And every actor in it, uh, with one exception, started getting work after Nishant. Uh, Shabana was already a star. Her stardom got firmly established. Smita became a star. Girish became a star. Amrish became a star. Kulbhushan started getting work in big budget Hindi movies. Uh, Mohan Agashe, Anant Nag, everybody. The only one who got left out was me. I got absolutely nothing after after Nishant, and it was rather discouraging because I wondered what I'd done wrong when my work was actually praised by a number of people, and I'm very proud of that performance myself. In fact, considering it's my first performance, I think I acquitted myself pretty well. That character is actually very close to my heart. I'm the youngest of three brothers from a landowning family, and I was a bit of a butt of the jokes of my older brothers and so on. So it was easy to identify with that person. Identifying with Bhola was equally easy because I'd felt the pain that people who slog in the fields, or people who look after cattle, or people who have very little to eat, or people who have no future and practically no past. I'd seen such people in my grandfather's farms in Meerut, which is where we belong, near Delhi. And somewhere I empathized with those people. So I think I was able to identify with this character, and the anger I didn't need any help with. And
This was your second film with Shyam Benegal. You're a very young, new actor, but then you went on to do so many films with him. Would Could you talk a little bit about that process, how it changed your equation with him, or his style of directing you, or something as you began to do more films?
well, it was after Manthan that I started getting work from other filmmakers, which which were the kind of roles I'd expected to get in the commercial industry. The police inspector who comes in at the end, or the doctor who comes in and says, one sentence or something like that. And these roles started coming in, which I turned down because Shyam was already in preparation for his next movie, which was Bhumika, which was the biography of the famous actress Hansa Vadkar, the Maharashtrian film actress. So I didn't feel terribly down. In fact, I felt terrific because here were all these other offers coming to me, which I was not interested in taking, and Sham was going ahead with his next film, indefatigable, absolutely. And Sham was always extremely caring. He cast me in Nishant against a lot of people's advice. I was a troublemaker. I was badly behaved. I was rebellious. I was this and that. Sham didn't pay any heed to all that, and he cast me. Our relationship as people, as my relationship as a human being, got established with Sham the very first time I met him. In fact, I'd gone to meet him so that he could consider me for my first film. Girish Karnad had sent me to Sham, and I was terribly nervous. My legs were shaking, in fact, when I went into his house. But the moment Sham appeared and shook my hand and put his hand on my shoulder and spoke to me, I felt very comforted. I really believed what people say, that a touch can heal. Sham's touch really did heal, and I've always felt completely at ease with him. He told me without hesitation that I was in this film, and I'd have to work pretty hard because the character was nothing like I was. Little did Sham know that the character was very much like I was, and he paid great attention to. He trusts his actors greatly. That's the great thing about Sham. He doesn't consider it his duty to teach you how to act. He lets you be and comes in with a little suggestion now and then. And you can always feel his presence. And that's very comforting. I detest the way films are shot these days, where the director sits in a corner watching a monitor, and has no contact with the actors. And if it is any contact, it is through an assistant. Those were different days, of course. There were no damn monitors. People today wonder how we ever made movies without watching the playback. Well, we did. We made hundreds of them, and pretty good ones too. I think the actors watching the monitor after a shot is a waste of time. They should not be allowed to do it. But anyway, I could sense from Sham whether he was pleased with me or not. And when he was not, he'd very gently come and guide me. And that's the way he's been with me throughout. I've worked with him in many movies. I treasure the experience of knowing Sham because he's been like a foster father to me. He and Neera, his wonderful wife, have always been very supportive and very affectionate, and he's treated me like a special son, which makes me feel very good. I've even stayed in his house. I'm like part of his family, uh, and Sham's going away was a big blow. But then when I watch Manthan, I can't help getting teary eyed because there are so many people in it who are not with us anymore, you know, and and the memory is bittersweet because I recall the wonderful time we had making the film, the affection I received from Sham, the support I received from the senior actors, Girish, Amrish, Agashe, all people who I knew about, people whose work I admired greatly, and and the cherry on the cake was I started getting other work as well. So my relationship with Sham stayed warm, cordial, and loving till the end. And if it weren't for him, I really don't know where I'd be today.
Thank you, sir. That was really moving, and I think you touched upon a lot of aspects of my second question. So I'm going to probably move on. My question was about your acting process and how you prepared for it. You kind of covered that, but there were stories about you, how you prepared, like by staying in villages and learning to milk a cow, and maybe touch upon that a little bit. And also, you acted with so many great, you know, great actors of that era, like you mentioned, Smita Patil, Kulbhushan Kharbanda, Amrish Puri, so many of them. Can you share some stories you remember from that time?
Oh yeah, Shabana. Uh, I had joined the Film Institute as a student uh, a couple of years after Shabana had left, and she'd already been in Ankur and had become a star. And she came to conduct one of our classes in diction. And I had seen Ankur, and I had been pretty much blown away by Shabana's performance and by Sadhu Meher's performance and the film. And I had felt overjoyed when I saw the film because I felt that this is the kind of film that I'm going to get work in. I had no delusions about becoming a star. I wouldn't have minded, of course, but I didn't think I had the qualifications. But when I saw Ankur, and when I saw before that, I'd seen Bhuvan Shom, I'd seen Basu Chatterjee's film Sara Akash, and of course I'd seen Mr. Ray's films and some of Ronaldo's. And I felt this is the kind of film I could get a part in. This is the kind of film that needs actors like me, not chocolate faces. And as luck would have it, in Sham's very next film, I got cast. So anyway, Shabana came to conduct this class, and she was teaching us about Urdu diction, which she speaks pretty well, of course, but so do I, because Urdu is my mother tongue, and it's the first language I ever heard. So there was one point where I corrected her, being a student in the first year, my second day at the FTII, and I'm correcting Shabana Azmi's pronunciation. There's a word called kainat, which she pronounced with a q. She said, this is kainat. So I said, excuse me, ma'am, it's not kainat, it's kainat. And I think she got a little miffed, but gracious enough later to come to me and say, yes, you were right. And we didn't actually become friends because she was too in a different orbit altogether. But when we met at the shooting of Nishant, she didn't recognize me because she didn't remember I'd been in her class and so on. But she was very encouraging. She has always been. I consider it one of the great good fortunes of my life that I got cast with Shabana in so many films. She is so encouraging, she is so supportive, she's so positive. She never lets temperament get in the way. And she made me feel very comfortable because as I told you, I was terribly nervous. Amrish Puri was the first person who I had to do a shot with. And I was in awe of Amrish. I'd seen his work on the stage, and I thought he was magnificent. And the first scene I had to do was I'm leaving the house to go somewhere, and Amrish is having a bath with all his muscles and stuff, you know. And he called me, hey, come here. So I went up to him, and I was wondering, how do I perform before this giant? You know, how am I going to get my nerves together? But then I recalled what I'd been taught at the Film Institute, and that is to try and figure out in a scene, where are you coming from? Where are you going? What's your intention in the scene? And I just concentrated on that. I'm leaving to sneak out to have another peek at this woman I've fallen in love with, the schoolmaster's wife. And the eldest brother stops me and interrogates me, and that is where the plan to kidnap the girl gets decided. Now, Amrish was also he was the gentlest person I know. Amrish, you'd be surprised to hear this, but he really was the kindest, gentlest person I've ever met in my life. And he was, you know, with his voice and everything. So he tried to tell me what to do, and I said, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And then after the shot, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, oh, bhai, tum to bahut tumshi cheez nikle. which is a compliment I treasure. Because he thought I'd be some little snotty film institute type method actor. But what I did, he approved of. Agashe and Anant were the funniest people on the set. Smita was too gorgeous for words, and it was I had known her before. Um, the funny thing is that with all these wonderful people, I worked with all of them several times. I never actually became close friends with any of them. Um, Girish, of course, was my teacher at the FTII, so he was always Sir for me. He became Girish much later. But Amrish, I was in awe of. Shabana, I admired greatly. Smita was just too wondrous. You just keep looking at her. And I think that's a good thing, because it doesn't do for actors to have deep personal relationships with each other, because the personal relationship shows through. Of course, if two actors are actually in love in life and they have to play two characters in love, it helps. But not in many other cases. The camera has an ability to see through the facade, and that is why perhaps there are not so many celebrated husband-wife teams in cinema, whereas there are plenty in theatre.
You talked about all your colleagues, and all of them are either FTI or NFD, the National School of Drama, NSD. And they've all acted almost together in a lot of Shyam Benegal films. So it's very surprising if you had the same kind of cast and he also had similar crew in most of his films, that you didn't become like this one big close-knit family where you were buddies throughout. So it's interesting for you to say that that was a deliberate choice.
Yes, because as I said, it colors your interaction. Um, this term that is used often these days called chemistry between actors is basically nothing but having faith in the other actor, having admiration for the other actor, and feeling safe with the other actor. It has nothing to do with the personal friendship. People often say that my chemistry with Shabana was wonderful, and it was. My chemistry with someone like Arshad Varsi was wonderful. Arshad and I are not very close friends. We hardly ever meet, in fact. But when we work together, we come at each other like Shabana and I. We seldom meet. Even in the days when we were working together, we seldom met, apart from work. And when we approach each other as the characters, we are like blank sheets of paper. And that colors our reactions to each other rather than our personal relationships. I don't mean that we never met or anything. Of course we did. And incidentally, all of them are not from FTII or NSD. Shabana is the only one who's from FTII. Amrish is not from NSD or from FTII. Anant, Agashe, Kulbhushan, none of them. Smita, none of them. But they're all connected with the theatre. And that is what made this wonderful ensemble that Shyam got together work. I don't think there could be any other filmmaker who would cast, after having made a successful first film, who would not immediately jump onto the bandwagon and start casting popular stars. Shyam had the guts to introduce 6 of us. That's Girish, Amrish, Agashe, myself, Kulbhushan Kharbanda, and Savita Bajaj. All 6 of us in major parts. Shabana was the only known entity in those days. Amrish did small parts in commercial movies. Agashe hadn't appeared, no one knew him. So it was a very courageous step on Shyam's part, and that ensemble stayed together. And it's all because of love for Shyam, and it's because of the sense of comfort that he imparted to us all.
So my question to you is that you worked with Mr. Benegal a lot, and Mr. Benegal was a man ahead of his times. You know, he's probably the most influential person in the parallel cinema, in Indian parallel cinema. Um, because you knew him very well, can you elaborate, or what is your perspective on his ideals and the relevance of his work in today's world, especially like considering that Manthan is being restored, it's screened in all over theaters in India.
I think a great piece of work, whether it's in cinema or whether it's in literature or whether it's painting or sculpture or poetry or anything, uh, the distinguishing feature of that is that it outlives the time in which it was written or the time in which it was made. Shyam's enormous contribution is that he made films which are true mirrors of their times, films which someone called Manthan a very interesting documentary. And that made me very happy because I consider documentaries to be a very important aspect of filmmaking. A documentary is the only kind of film which can capture reality as it is. If you're telling a story in a feature film, you have to resort to abstraction or fiction every now and then, but a documentary can capture life as it is. And cinema is the only medium, as you know, which can do that. Cinema is part theatre, part music, part architecture, part drama, part photography, part painting, part sound recording, part music. It incorporates all the other elements of art into it, and it is the only medium which can capture life as it is, which is why I consider documentaries so important. And when this person called Manthan a very interesting documentary, I was delighted because documentaries are really the films which will 100 years later show us what our world was really like. And I consider it my duty to participate in such movies. Shyam has not always been on the ball. He has often made a few mistakes. He's made a few films which are not worthy of him. But that does not alter the fact that he opened the door for many, many young filmmakers who may criticize him and his style and so on. But the fact is, he opened doors for them by making Ankur, by making Nishant, and by making Manthan, which was in fact his biggest success. Everybody said, Manthan, who will see this film about milkmen, yaar? But to everyone's astonishment, it turned out to be a sleeper hit, which was not as important as the fact that 48, 49 years later, the film is being celebrated. The film is still
Absolutely.
relevant. The issues it talks about still haunt us today. Um, it can never lose its importance. It can never lose its significance, apart from the fact that it elevated the white revolution of Dr. Kurian into a nationwide phenomenon. There was no milk cooperative in Sanganwa where we shot Manthan. There is a flourishing milk cooperative there now, and there are thousands of others. So that's one of the few things that Shyam has done, making people aware of the plight of exploited villagers, the ruthlessness of zamindars, the heartlessness of the film industry, the truth of 1857. Whatever subject he's touched, he has imbued it with a certain unique magic and has never compromised. He has never jumped onto the bandwagon and tried to make a popular film. He has made what his heart bid him to do, and that has been, I think, a sterling example for all filmmakers who have followed in Shyam's footsteps. His significance cannot be undervalued.
Absolutely brilliant, man. Now we have few audience questions.
Mr. Shah, you've always stood for meaningful cinema, even before it was fashionable. So, as a huge fan, growing up watching all your movies and wanting to see even more now, would love to know what kind of stories excite you now and what makes you say yes to a script.
It's more or less the same rule that I've always had. Initially, of course, when I didn't have work, I would have accepted anything that came my way. Then things changed. But what excites me now, after all these years, and after having done so many wonderful parts, been lucky enough to have been recognized by so many perceptive filmmakers, what excites me now is the prospect of having fun. What excites me now is the possibility that this film may be remembered. This film, irrespective of the length of the role, is stating something which I believe in. This film is stating something which needs to be said, and this is a film which will stand the test of time. But most important, am I going to have fun doing it? To me, that is of the most importance, because films will be seen 100 years later. All these films that are being made today will be seen 100 years later, and if 100 years later somebody wished to know what the India of the 20th and the early 21st century was like, they would have material to study, and it would be a great tragedy if they found some potboiler with popular actors singing and dancing in it, because that's not what the India of today is like and ever has been. So those are the reasons. The reason could be the fact that I'd like to work with this director. The reason could be that there are wonderful co-actors who I'm supporting. The reason could be that I'm getting a lot of money. but that wouldn't outweigh the virtues of that film. So there are many reasons, but the main ones are the ones I enlisted.
Once you've selected a particular role, what is the process by which you embed yourself in that role where we cannot distinguish you from the role that you're playing?
I attach great importance to reading the script. Whether I'm doing a play or whether I'm doing a film, I read the script very many times as I can. I try and understand what the writer is conveying, in what sense he is conveying it, and when it comes to preparing my own part, I don't model the character I play on someone I've seen in real life. I never do that. I take bits from people I've seen in real life. But what I try to do is to try and discover whether or not I have the potential within me to be such a person. Whether I'm playing the rebellious milkman in Manthan, or whether I'm playing the stupid youngest brother in Nishant, or whether I'm playing the ferocious rebel in Junoon, or whether I'm playing the landless laborer from Bihar in a film called Par, or whether I'm playing a sightless man, or whether I'm playing a defense lawyer who's working against all odds. Whatever it may be, I try to discover if I have within me the potential of being such a person. And invariably I find that I do. And I think all of us do. We all have every potential within us. So, I'm often asked by students when I conduct classes, because I ask them to perform the exercises as themselves, not as a character. So sooner or later the question does crop up that, but if we're going to play everything as ourselves, then what about if we have to play a part that's totally different from us? And my answer to that is there is no part that is totally different from you. If you look hard enough into yourself, you'll find that you have the potential of being a saint, a thief, a pimp, a king, a beggar, a landlord, a tyrannical subedar, a penniless slum dweller. You have the potential in you to do that. The important thing an actor must do is to discover that potential and uncover it, which is what I try to do. It is really true that if any one of us examine our lives, and if one circumstance in our lives had been different, we would have been completely different people today. So that is how I try to discover different aspects of myself, and that is why, to me, acting still excites me, because I discover more and more as I get older, as I get younger, actually.
I'm still a little curious on the aspect that somebody just mentioned, that you actually went to villages and you learned to milk the cows. So I'm just wondering, like, did you actually go to the slums to see the Chakra part where you played that slum dweller, or the Parsi of the Pestunji where you had that Parsi accent and the blinking of the eyes, or were they just your own imaginations, or like uh, you actually worked? And besides that, did you actually have workshops with Mr. Sham or things like that, like before the film or during the film, like to get into the character or things like that? Thank you so much.
As far as observing and empathizing, see, I believe an actor must keep absorbing all the time. He must keep observing and imagining all the time. And empathy is the greatest, is the most essential quality that an actor should have. And I've always had empathy for the villagers who work in the fields. I've always had empathy for those who to whom my grandfather would toss an 8-anna coin or something as if he was giving them a fortune. I've also had empathy for my grandfather, who was a pretty tyrannical guy, who was not the most kind-hearted person in the world. I could understand his point of view. I could understand the point of view of these people as well. So if you haven't already observed and absorbed the plight of these people, it's not so necessary to understand the person, to play the person. I mean, if I'm to play Mirza Ghalib, am I supposed to understand him? I'm playing Einstein on stage, am I supposed to understand him? It would take me 6 lifetimes and I still wouldn't be able to. It's important to understand not the person, because we're not psychoanalysts. It's important to understand his situation. And that is what I did. I didn't go to a slum to observe how the slum people live, because I've seen that. I've actually had experience. I know people who live in slums, and I've been there. I've had meals there with my employees, some of whom live there. I've moved around. I meet those people all the time, whether they are the vegetable seller who comes to my house, or whether it's the dhobi who brings the clothes, or whether it's the messenger boy who comes. So I know these people. I didn't have to go and sit in front of a slum to watch how they behave, because that will do no good. If you have, all you'll observe is the superficialities. I did go to a village in order to get the reflexes of living in a village. Though I have lived in villages as a child, I didn't find that very difficult. So I think more important than carrying out a superficial observation for half an hour, you should be observing these people all your life, every moment of your life, and learn to empathize with them. So, I mean, I played a pimp in a film called Chakra. The set that was built was very realistic. People took it for an actual hutment colony. I didn't go to observe the pimps. I tried to find the pimp within myself So it's a mixture of imagination and observation that you use. When you hear stories of great actors like Robert De Niro or Daniel Day-Lewis, who who were into their roles 6 months in advance, I think they were just practicing. They were not becoming the character. They were practicing what was necessary in order to play the part. So it's an actor's job to observe and absorb all the time, not only when he is playing a particular role.
One question is, what is an advice that you have received in your lifelong career as a theater actor, as a film actor, as a mentor, that you still really hold dear to your heart and also impart to your students? And my second one is, what is it that really annoys you about a director?
Annoys me. All right. The best advice I've received as an actor, well, when I was young, I never dared confess the fact that I wanted to be an actor. When I was in school, I was playing the leading roles in the school plays and so on. I thought I was the cat's whiskers, and there was this person called Jeffrey Kendall, who I was very much inspired by and continue to be inspired by. He ran this troupe called Shakespeareana, which came and performed Shakespeare in our school every year, and I consider him the greatest actor I've ever seen. So I one day plucked up enough courage to go to him and talk to him and tell him, I want to join your group, sir. And he said, look, there's no place for a young boy, and do you want to become an actor? So I said, yes, I do. So he said, look, there's a choice you have to make. If you were faced with the possibility of never, ever acting in your life, would you still live on? And if the answer is no, only then choose to become an actor. Don't think that the world is awaiting you with open arms. Don't think you're the greatest actor in the world. Just decide whether acting means more to you than life itself. It shook me. And I went home and examined myself, and I realized that what he was saying was true. If I were not able to act, earlier than that, it was cricket, of course. I always wanted to be a cricketer. There's nothing else I ever wanted to be but a cricketer or an actor. And I realized that, yes, this is what I really, really wanted to do with my life. And if I were not to get to do it, I'd rather die. And that's what I tell young actors today. Make this decision. Only if it matters enough to you, if it matters that much to you, then choose to become an actor, because it's a very lonely, it's a very heartbreaking profession. You'll find nobody to help you. You'll find nobody to encourage you. You'll find nobody to show you the right way. You got to do it all on your own. And if you're willing to do that, only then choose to become an actor. This is the advice Mr. Kendall gave me. I treasure it in my heart. As far as film acting is concerned, when I was doing my first film, as I said before, I was very anxious. I didn't want to go wrong, and I told Shyam that please help me, because my legs feel rubbery when I go in front of the camera and the camera comes on and I hear this sound. I just get the willies. So he said, look, you have to learn, just as on the stage you learned how to be in touch with every single member of the audience. Doesn't that happen when you're on stage? I said, yes. In that same way, stay in touch with the camera, because the camera is ultimately the eye of every man in the audience. Don't be afraid of the camera. Make friends with it. And it took me a while to overcome my fear of the camera, because when we were kids, taking a photograph was a big thing, you know. There were no mobile phones. I mean, I'm still terrified of the telephone. It's still to me an object of wonder. And a camera, I mean, having a camera meant getting a film for it, then taking the photographs, hoping that they'd come out, then giving the film for developing into a negative, and then making it into a positive, and all this cost a precious 4 or 5 rupees, you know. And so taking a family photograph was always an occasion. So for me, the camera has always been an object of some awe. But Shyam telling me this helped me realize that the camera is not going to come out and bite me on the nose. All I need to do is relax in its presence. What annoys me about a director is when he tries to demonstrate how a scene should be done.
Thank you.
And a lot of directors consider themselves actors too. So I've had this experience too, and I've had to imitate what the director was doing, and the results have always been ghastly. So directors should not try and teach the actor how to act. They should have faith in the actor, put him in a comfort zone.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for being so generous. And in many ways, when we were listening to you, it felt like a masterclass. So I think we got so much more tonight. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And from all of us at Indie Meme in Austin, Texas, you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, and you too. Bye-bye, all. Thank you for coming.